we will go ahead and get started then. I'm just going to move over and kick off with introductions. As we're getting to know you, we'd love to share a little bit more about ourselves as well. I think Dave will start this for us.
All right. Yes. Thank you for being here today. My name is Dave Palmer, and I work with our customer success initiative, and essentially my role is to help educators and other users understand how to use our tools. I have a background in education technology for the last just about 6 years now, and prior to that, I actually worked in human resources, but had some other duties as assigned in technology and training. And so when I had the chance to move over into EdTech, I was really excited and felt like I've got one of the greatest jobs. So happy to be here with you.
And it's great to meet all of you. My name is Brittany Davis. I come from the K-12 space. I taught middle school and high school English language arts primarily. I had been really excited to go into education because I think my passion was always around how do we help youth discover their potential and use that potential in their communities. So I loved that. And then from there went to an educational nonprofit that was focused on leadership development through service learning with students kind of across the country, and then joined the Lucid for Education team leading out on our learning solutions and our operations about 2 years ago because of seeing that power with these tools to do what I've always loved about education, which is help students, again, develop their individual talents and communicate those, all students. So I'm excited to get to chat with you. It's been incredible to see what educators are doing in this environment and to learn more from you. So thanks again for commenting in the chat. That really does help us get to know. We found in a couple of the webinars that we've been doing recently that it's been incredible to get the innovative ideas from each other, just exchange those ideas and spark some thoughts for us of how we may do that in our classrooms as well. And then we'll have a recording of this that we'll send out tomorrow, along with the chat and Q&A, so that you have access to that. In case you do see some ideas that you just weren't able to capture, you'll have that there. So let's go ahead and move on then to our agenda. Just sliding over a little bit. We'll begin with kind of a high-level overview of the Lucid for Education Learning Suite, just so you can kind of pinpoint where we're at as we then talk about Lucid Spark. And Dave will walk us through Lucid Spark. This may be familiar to some of you. He'll walk us through those key tools, the most popular features of Lucid Spark that we can use to get started in 5 minutes. And then that's when we'll move into, so what are we seeing instructors doing to facilitate meaningful live instruction? We'll look at how they're engaging students and checking for understanding before, during, and after that live instruction. And in that email that you'll receive tomorrow with the recording, with the Q&A and chat, you'll also get a toolkit with some of these resources, some templates that are just ready to go that we'll share with you today so that you have those if you want to refer back to, and you have a resource hub of tools as well. So let's go ahead and begin with the learning journey, the Lucid for Education Suite.
Perfect. Thank you. So excited to talk through a couple of these options here, for these tools that we have that comprise how we see this learning journey. So Lucid for Education, our suite is one of the only ones that provides a collaborative, comprehensive, personalized learning journey for students all in one place. That journey might start in Lucid Spark, which we're going to discuss today, which is a digital whiteboard that will help to spark some of those ideas and increase and encourage collaboration with students. And then it might move on to Lucid Chart, where students can then visualize and demonstrate their ideas by using dynamic graphic organizers. This will really allow them to explore their thinking, their different strategies, and get those out in a way that's visual. And then it might conclude by going to Lucid Press, which is a multimedia publisher, allowing students to demonstrate their ideas and things that they have learned using a publication tool. So today we're going to be just focusing specifically on Lucid Spark, but I want to talk about just three maybe concepts that encompass each of these different applications. One is that they can be accessed anywhere on any device. So device agnostic, it doesn't matter your browser, and that's fantastic, especially knowing that we have lots of different tools and tech tools that we use. Second, they're collaborative. This will make it really easy for students to engage with each other, for teachers to engage with students, for faculty and professors to engage with each other. a fantastic way to make sure that we're on the same page as we collaborate. And lastly, integrating with tools that are already commonly used, such as Google or Microsoft, as well as many LMS options. So as we get started, the question might first be, how do you get in? How do you first access Lucid Spark? So I'm going to share my screen real quickly. Sorry, I should have been ready to hit it. All right. And the way that you might first access Lucid Spark is by going to, we're going to actually go to lucidforeducation.com. And in here, depending on if you're K-12 specific or in higher education, you'll be able to see some options that are more specific to you. And then from there, go ahead and select on the tool that you're wanting to learn about. We'll go to Lucid Spark specifically. Here I can go ahead and just see a little bit more about Lucid Spark. And then I can go ahead and log in. Now, I'm already logged in here, so it says log out. We'll just go right to documents and show what that does. Now this brings me into a familiar place for any of you who have used Lucid Chart, where it has some content that I might be familiar with, either to get me started with some information here at the bottom and the right. I can jump right back into content that I've been working on, or we're going to go ahead and just create a brand new Lucid Spark board by clicking on this blue plus new button. And I've got the option here, Lucid Chart document, but we're going to focus on creating a Lucid Spark board. All right. Now, I want to give you just a quick 5-minute intro to some of the tools to be kind of just a base, as you'll see Brittany using a lot of these tools so that you're ready to go. And you're welcome to follow along with us if you want to go into Lucid Spark and create your own board. All right, now in here, first you'll just see where a lot of the magic happens, our whiteboard. It's actually an infinite board, meaning that there really is no defined end. And what that does is it allows us to be able to not have to run out of space. We don't have to worry about erasing. We don't have to worry about saving. We have everything here that we need. If I wanted to share this directly with a student or a colleague, I can come up here to the top and click on share. This will allow me to name my board and then to share. I'm going to click on advanced to do that. I have a couple of ways that I can share: directly by putting in an email or a name if we're on the same account, or I can create a shareable link, which is the way I tend to do this if I'm going to get it into my LMS. There are some options here about restricting to just our own account or for it to be public, depending on if you're on a free account or a paid account. All right, and I'll go ahead and generate that link, which would allow me to copy and then send that either through email or through my LMS. Next, on the left-hand side are going to be some of our whiteboarding tools. So let's go through a few of those. One, as I want to add any questions or add any words onto the board, I can do a drag and drop. Just going to do a left click and drag this right out onto my canvas. And then I can immediately start to type the question that I have that I want to add for my students. And you'll see some options at the top if I want to do any formatting to that question. And then down below that, I've got my sticky notes. And from here, either I or my students can start to interact with this question by adding different shapes, different sticky notes onto our canvas. If I want to type, I just double click and I add my different ideas or a concept. If I want to do any kind of connecting of these ideas, you'll notice an option for a line, which will allow me to create a line that will connect over from one idea to the next. Easily allowing me to make connections. Now we'll talk through a few of the features here, such as emojis and tagging here in a little bit, but you'll see those options here at the top when I have my sticky note selected. All right, next I'm going to show our freehand pen tool. I'm going to click over here on the left-hand side again. And from here, I can select the thickness and a color, and then maybe focus on a specific idea that I want to talk about. So this really allows us to interact, start working through these ideas, commenting back and forth, and making sure that we're on the same page. I realized that I skipped over our shapes. I'm going to just briefly touch on that. The shapes here allow us for creating a basic flow diagram. So if I select maybe this rectangle, again, I'll be able to use arrows, and it will allow me to determine what I want to add. So different shapes, if they make sense for the type of flow diagram that I'm creating. And then again, I can start to add text onto those shapes or text right onto the line. All right, the last thing that I'll highlight will be containers. If I want to start adding something that makes it easy for me to grab all of my ideas together, either shapes or sticky notes, I can create a container that I can drag out onto the canvas, or I might also be able to sort and gather based off criteria such as the tags or the emojis or the color of the sticky note. All right. Now, lastly, a couple of quick tips just for navigating around on this canvas. Some of them you may have already seen me do. One, if you're using a laptop and you are using a trackpad, that'll make it really easy for you to move up and down. I tend to use a mouse a little bit more often. And so I'm going to just right click. That will allow me to grab anywhere on the canvas and move around, especially where this is a large board. It makes it a little bit easier for me to move from one place to the next. And if I want to get a holistic view of this entire board, I can click down on the bottom right. There is a mini map option, and that will allow me to see in miniature everything that I've added. Now I've just got a small subset, so you're just seeing really quickly what I've got, but it will allow me to move around, select a specific area. You'll see Brittany do this a lot as she goes through different areas that she's going to use as an activity. She'll jump from place to place by using this mini map. All right, with that, I think we're ready to turn it over to Brittany to show us some examples of how we can use Lucid Spark.
Great, thank you. Okay, so I am going to use exactly what Dave was talking about, that mini map, and jump to my first section here. We talked about how we really want to dive in and look at how educators are creating meaningful live instruction before that live instruction, during that live instruction, after that live instruction. So if you'll join me, let's start with before. And this kind of comes from the fact that educators have been saying engaging students is challenging right now, right? And then even right now, there's the fact that we're in the middle of the holiday season, which has always been hard to engage students then. But another side effect of the challenge with engaging students is that if they aren't engaged with us, we're not able to see what they're doing and what they're thinking. And so we don't have an opportunity to intervene and to guide. And so they're looking for how can we set it up that from the beginning, students are engaging with us. So one educator, before the lesson or lecture was starting, was thinking, okay, I want students to start thinking about the topic that we'll be discussing. Maybe we're reading The House on Mango Street, and you know that a lot of the vignettes focus on family and identity. So I'm going to ask a question: how similar to your family are you? How different are you? And I want students to respond. Also be thinking about, if you don't mind, we'll ask you in a minute, what are some ways that you would engage students at the start of a lesson or a lecture? We'll come to you for those ideas. So this is using the basic shape tool that Dave showed. Come over to the left toolbar. And this is literally within a minute. As an educator, we can click on the shape, identify the one we want, drag and drop. I'm just releasing to drop it. And you'll notice that flashing spacebar, which means it's ready for me to start typing, similar to your family. Ready for me to start typing instantly. I didn't have to double click there. So that's how fast it was to get something onto the board, so that we literally could do this as students are maybe joining the session or something. And then as soon as I share that board with students, however I want to get it out, posting that link in my LMS, they can, like Dave was saying, click on this shape and grab that arrow, and it moves with them, right? It adapts. It will go anywhere. And so actually, you'll notice that Dave is on this board with me. He may be responding to your questions though too. So please keep putting questions in chat, Q&A, we'll be responding there. But he's on this board with me. So he, at the very same time, could be grabbing this arrow, dragging and dropping. And it's super cool that it will just adapt with us as we go. And then you'll notice when I release, it gives me the option. Do I want it to link to something, to a text box, to a sticky note? I'll go ahead and choose a sticky note here. And that's where, again, flashing spacebar, it's ready for my student to begin writing. So within seconds, they're communicating their ideas. They're commenting and responding to this prompt. We may want to leave it anonymous, but let's say that for this question, we don't. So one option we have here, you'll notice what I did up here. If I double click on this line, anywhere on this line, this is really miniature. The toolbar shows up for me, so I'll increase the size, but it creates a text box for me. And that's where I can type. So that's one way we could have students getting their ideas out there and labeling it. But in case we don't want to have to add another step of instructions. Sometimes we just want to instantly know which of our students are working with us, right? We can do that much more simply than instructing them to write their name there. If you'll notice, I'm going to move down here. Up at the top of my screen, you see a little eye, and then you see a pink initial with Dave's, or a pink circle with Dave's initials on it. And that indicates Dave's here with me. It would have up here all my different collaborators, the initials for my collaborators. It also has a place where we can chat with them if that's enabled. And I'm going to go ahead and make sure, okay, cursors are on. So I could see Dave moving around, and I'll see that he's on this. Okay, that's one way that I start to get a pulse for that. But I'm also going to, further over on the right, click on Team Tools. I see an icon with a group of 3 people, and I'm coming down to my third option, Collaborator Colors. Some of you may be familiar with this already, but this is a way that you can take out the work of yourself of having to instruct students of how to identify themselves. I'm just going to flip on Unique Collaborator Colors. You'll notice it posts a little key to my board here. It says that Dave is a dark pink, I'm a light pink. And then I'm going to click on my sticky notes. When I create a sticky note, it's now in my color. And so that's the same thing for Dave, and everything's aligned. I can see up here that Dave is pink. I've got that's his collaborator color. Wherever he is, his name is in pink. And then if he drags out a sticky note, it's in that dark pink as well. So without me having to do anything, just a click of one button, all the work is done for me. I instantly know which of my students are collaborating. That's another option that we have there. There are endless ways that you could have students responding, but let's just say that instead we split this out, and it wasn't that shape, but we grabbed text boxes instead, dragged them out onto the canvas, typed our 2 questions, and here we just wanted students responding with their sticky notes. So that's where those collaborator cursors really come in handy then, right? I know who my light pink student is, and they're responding there. So if you're looking for ways to get students actively engaged in the learning from the beginning, to have maybe an initial glimpse into what they already know about this, or to activate their schema, I'd really recommend using some of these tools over here on the left to get a quick prompt out there and have students start responding. So now I'm curious from you, if we can pause for about 30 seconds and ask, and by the way, like we've done in the past, we have 5 gift cards that we'll be awarding at the end of this webinar. Well, anyone who comments will be including your name in a drawing, and Dave will announce those at the end of the webinar. So please throw out your comments in the chat, but I'm curious, what type of bell ringer activities or introductory activities would you want to do with students as you're beginning that live instruction? I'll go ahead and turn on the music for about 30 seconds while you're putting some ideas in there, and feel free to read each other's. They've been really cool to see those responses.
That's great.
Okay, so great questions here. The question is, what type of bell ringer activities or introductory activities would you want to do with students, or would you recommend to other teachers to do with students? So I love seeing what it's coming through. When you teach math, have them attempt a problem. Oh, an answer garden activity, predictive questions. Oh, and I love, this is awesome. What are 3 healthy choices you made over the weekend? These are great. Oh, and this one seems really cool. We have them take the 16 personalities quiz and show who in the class has the same type as you. That would be neat. You could, Dave just briefly showed some of the sorting features. The sorting features would really help with that product related trivia. Ask people to put their ideas on what culture is and its values. Yes. Oh, wonder and notice is bell ringers. Okay. These are fantastic. Thank you. Memes about how you're feeling. Okay, keep these coming. These are great. And we'll make sure we get get these shared out so you have some of these suggestions as well. One thing, I'm going to resume my share and share with you. We will have coming tomorrow in that email, like we mentioned, a few other tips and templates. And a few of them may look like this: a suggestion for pasting an image there and allowing students to respond with sticky notes. Other ones we've seen is just using that freehand drawing tool to quickly throw up kind of a KWL and have students responding. Allowing students to grab out shapes and say, hey, tell me what the water cycle is. So we're tapping into, okay, we talked about the water cycle yesterday. Build that process for me today. Do we still remember that? How much have we retained? This will be a template that you'll receive as well. I saw someone comment on SEL, right? But if we're wanting to get a feel for how is our group today, where are we at? They can just drag these dots and move them around. It can be totally anonymous at this point, right? Just to get a sense of how the group is doing, how the class is doing. Or we could do something like this: give us your opinion. And they create a sticky note with their name on it and kind of essentially vote here. We have other voting options too. So you'll be getting those tomorrow, a few other tips or ideas of how you could do that. But let's go ahead now and jump to during instruction, while we're facilitating live instruction. And there are two examples I'll share here, and then we'd love to hear some of your ideas. And this one's relying a little bit more on kind of the fact that Lucid can be my dry erase marker again. So you've probably seen how creative we've all been trying to get, because the whiteboard is so essential to us, right? As educators, it's where we can go to instantly reteach when we need to on the fly. But how do we do that when we're in remote but live instruction? And we've heard some teachers sharing with us that they would try and like put a camera on their whiteboard in their classroom and be writing on their whiteboard, but then they'd have to move the camera to follow them, right? And students at home couldn't necessarily see very well. Or some were holding up mini whiteboards and having students on the other end hold up mini whiteboards, but it was really awkward to write and instruct as you're leaning at the same time. And so here, going back to what Dave did, and this is going to be a good test for me because you all heard that I come from the English world. But a math teacher shared, and I think we have a few math instructors on the call, that she went ahead and posed a problem: 2x squared plus 3 equals 75. And she could be working through this with her students and modeling out, how do we begin to solve that? Well, we're wanting to isolate x, to get that variable x, right? So we begin to remove what we can so that we get x by itself. And so I can subtract 3 from this side. What I do to one side, I do to the other. And this now leaves me with 2x squared, right? You all can be correcting me, equals 72. Okay, and so she continues walking them through this, right? Still want to get that x by itself. So I'm going to divide by 2. Divide 72 by 2, and now we're left with x squared equals 36. And then she would continue, right? So after she's modeled, that's when this educator came up, shared the board with her students, wrote out another question for her students, and had them all just start responding. And one thing she could do, let's say I had a student, Marcus. Dave will stand in for Marcus today. And I knew that maybe this was a particular challenge for him, this type of algebra. And so I wanted to see where he was at and help him with it as all of my students are responding. First, I can glance at all students, but I want to focus in on Marcus. So if you notice, I'm coming to the top right. And where I see Dave's little icon here, I click on his initials, and that jumps me to him. And I see, oh, he's actually over here. So I might leave a comment for him. I might just @message him, chat him, and say, hey, Dave, do you need help with this at all? Or something like that. Or I might say, you know, if he's working right here, I'm going to go ahead and click and choose that comment icon that you see. @mention him. Let me close the mini map so you can see this. @mention Dave. And tell him, how can we, okay, isolate that x. A math teacher would probably have better feedback, right? But I'll comment It jumps into exactly where I left that comment. He can see what I was focusing on, and he can respond back there. And I know we've talked about this with several of you, but when we resolve that, it never goes away. So we do have a continual thread of the feedback. We don't lose that feedback, thankfully. That's what this one teacher did. So I'm going to go ahead and share with you a way another teacher did. Some of you may have seen this. This was a science teacher in Virginia, and they approach it just slightly differently. You can see that they have all their students here with their collaborator colors, but then they also labeled sections of the board where the different students were working. And they, in chemistry, were practicing Lewis dot diagrams. And so the students were using the freehand tool. And again, this is that concept of the teacher could go in and comment on any of these and give immediate feedback. But she was saying, hey, these students are thinking, they're working, and I can help support by asking guiding questions as well. So we'd love to go ahead and pause here and ask all of you to comment in the chat again. What are some ways that, actually, you know what, before I do that, keep that question in mind though. What are some ways you would use this during live instruction? But I want to share one more tip. Something else that I've seen educators do is use templates, start from templates, and use that as a way to guide students in thinking and responding with the content. So that it's not just a lecture, but that they're engaging in some way. So if you'll notice over on the left-hand side, underneath that main toolbar, the last icon is for templates. And when I click on it, my template library pops up. And you'll see a lot that relate to education, and then some that are probably a little more business focused, but we've seen educators using those as well. So we could have a matrix here and an affinity diagram where we're grouping concepts together and labeling how those concepts connect. We could do a brain writing template. We might be using the concept map template. We might use a decision tree template or dot voting or an empathy map. That would be really interesting to see, or a flow chart, Kanban, mind map, mobile wireframes, depending on what subject we are and what we're developing. I've seen this retrospective used for reflection. So that's coming later too at the end of our live instruction. What if we wanted to build some sort of roadmap for a project we're working on, or a storyboard as we're reading a book together, or as we're studying a historical event? Can we be building out what's happening, and Venn diagrams as well, and timelines, right? So I'll just give you an example of what this looks like to insert one. Let's say we are in a history class and we're wanting to track, as we're studying this event, maybe even as we're lecturing, our students building out a timeline of what's happening. So we click Insert Template, and you'll notice that it's attached to my cursor. I can move wherever I want to on this board, and I can drop that template there and begin editing right away. That saves us a lot of time, right? That's, again, a way that we can bring live instruction in less than 5 minutes, meaningful live instruction in less than 5 minutes, because we've got the template we can start working from and just slightly edit or change. So now I will go ahead and pause. And if you'll put in the chat, how would you use Lucid Spark during live instruction? And as a reminder, we do have those 5 gift cards at the end.
All right, while we're getting some of those questions, this has been awesome. You guys have kept me busy. I've been having to try to keep up. I think that you did this as we were talking, but there was a question about calling students to see us. Brittany, did you already cover that?
No, that's a good question. Okay. Let's show that.
If you'll do that, that'd be great.
Okay, so let's say I am working on this timeline and I want to be building it together with my class. I showed you how we can follow Dave, right? Like I can know where Dave or my student's at. But what if I want all the students to see where I am so that they're not lost on different places of the board? This is right, like in class when I had students go work together in groups or pair up, but then we want to bring their instruction back together and focus it together and know that they're with me. And we can do that by going up to this eye in the top right corner, and I'm going to select the third option here, call others to me. And what that does is alert everyone else on the board. Dave's going to get an alert to come follow me, and they will be able to be zoomed into exactly what I'm showing and follow me as I zoom in. And as I move places, they'll move places with me too. And then when I'm done instructing or reteaching or focusing us in on a problem and walking us through it, I just press stop and they can jump back to their areas that they want to work on. A lot of educators we talk to have actually loved to use this with group work. So let's say we divide out into groups and we have groups working in different sections on the board here for maybe we set a timer. And maybe they're working for 5 minutes and they're taking different sections of the Civil War and learning about that. So we start this timer and they're working. And then when the timer rings, we stop. And now it's time to have those groups start presenting. And they could use that call other feature to me to jump us to their section and present about the work that they were doing.
I'll say that I use this a lot, that just being able to go click on Brittany as a student, I can go click on her icon and just find where she is if I got lost. And I do that a lot when we're working in groups. So it's really fantastic to just have a way that I don't have to say, hey, where are you? I can come find her. And so that's another great way to use that tool.
Okay, so this is great. We're seeing some that you might not all be seeing, but you would pose a concept and ask students to comment on links to the concept and explanations of the concept and how it relates to other ones you've learned. I love that, tying back into other ones that you've learned, and then asking students to comment on those boxes that other students have placed on the whiteboard, which is great. You can model for your students, how do we determine a topic and plan out an essay with that storyboard, and then let them go ahead and do that as well. Okay. Then you often have a range for like agree and disagree. I like that. Align, and we can have a center neutral place for that. And they can add spots on the line if they agree with a subject or not. Fantastic. We'll get out some of these ideas. These are great. Sorting and matching. You could absolutely do that. Have them drag and drop to match. These are great. Sorting, ranking, right, as well. Mind maps, keep these ideas coming. We will we'll send out tomorrow in that email again. You'll be getting a link to a toolkit that shows you some templates for how you could facilitate discussions. It will have a template for Lorraine's example of having that line where students can agree or disagree as well. But thanks for sharing that. Those are great ideas. So now where I'm going to move to is after the live instruction. Often we want to pulse on, what did our students get? Where's their mastery level at, right? Are they understanding? Do I need to come back and reteach tomorrow? So this is a template you'll receive as well. And you can use any sort of way that you typically ask for that feedback or check students' comprehension and understanding. A common one is exit tickets, right? So what you can do is just share this with your students and ask them, okay, what are 3 things you learned today? 2 things you found interesting? 1 question you still had. This is the traditional 3, 2, 1 exit ticket, right? This is all editable to you, by the way. So if you want to change up what you're asking here, but this is where students can come in, type their name, and then start responding. What did I learn? I learned about, okay, that's a question I have, but I learned about, right on my mind is the agree line that Lorraine uses. Okay, what did I find interesting? I just instantly begin typing here again. And then what's one question I still have? I saw that some of you work with students with in special education. I'd love to know, how do you think this would help students in special education? And be curious about that, what you see here, some of the visual aspects. So I might do that. One benefit of this is we could have students upvote this. So when I click on this, I as a student could be reading other students' questions, and the teacher could ask me, what do you want me to answer tomorrow? When we're back together, what question do you want me to really answer? And this is where I could respond with an emoji like, yes, this is the one that I want. And the more emojis, the more likely as an educator, maybe I focus in on that tomorrow, because we know that's a question that the majority of students have. We could also do this by setting up voting. So I come up to those team tools, I come down to my middle option, voting, and I'm going to say questions to answer. I'll title it, and I'll give each student 2 votes. I can control how many votes I want to give them there. We could set a timer too if we want to bring a little more structure to this. And then I'll click start voting. And you'll notice when I move my cursor over, it allows me to signal which ones I want to vote for. And maybe I say, yep, this is the one I really want answered. So much so that I'm putting my 2 votes there. And I would see Dave's progress if he were voting here. And then as the facilitator, I could end the voting and it populates my results for me instantly. Again, I don't have to do that work. So that's another great way to, at the end of live instruction, be able to quickly get responses from students, check for understanding in some way, and not have to have set it up beforehand. This is something we can do on the fly again as well. So last question of the day, if you don't mind posting in the chat for us, what are some ways that you like to get student feedback at the end of instruction? What do you do? What could you consider doing here? Application questions. I love that. Yes. And exit tickets. Okay, that's great. A problem of the day. That's another great idea as well, along with exit tickets. SEL emojis. That's cool. Like to take a pulse and say, hey, where are you feeling? And have them respond with an emoji. Reflections. Yes. Okay, and some want personalized feedback, right? And we could do that just with the educator and the student as well. 10-word or less summary of what we learned. Yes, that is fantastic. A sketch note of a concept. I love that idea. Take a poll about the content, test knowledge, any quiz. Yes. One thing I learned or improved, one thing I still have questions about. These are great. We'll send these out. And it'd be great to see how you can bring those to life here in Lucid Spark in just minutes. We will go ahead and wrap up there. Please continue to throw questions in the chat. A few takeaways that we'd like to share with you as we're wrapping up is we encourage you to start small, to try just one approach. Say, hey, today, this is how I'm going to engage students as we start our learning or our lecture. And I'll just have them respond to this one prompt. I'm going to share the board with them, have them respond here. Or I'm going to use a template today and have students create from this concept map template, but start small. And then I think you'll find what we found is it's just super intuitive and fast for students to respond. We also recommend using those templates like we talked about, and you'll have a toolkit coming tomorrow that you can launch from as well. It just saves a lot of time if you want to have that all set up and ready to go. Make a few quick modifications for your specific students, your class, and then don't hesitate to reach out with any questions. So I'll leave this up for a minute. This is our email. It's all together, lucidforeducation@lucidchart.com. And if you'd like to follow weekly, we're posting free content that you can use, free templates. So if you follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or Pinterest, you'll be able to access that.